Every year around this time, I'm getting asked what my garden plan is and what I'm intending to grow for the new garden year. So today I'll walk you through my garden planning process. At the end, we'll know how many plants per plant variety we'll need, and then we can go seed shopping. How about that? I'm Steffi. I'm a home gardener here in Attleboro, Massachusetts. It's zone 6, and I'd love to take you for the ride here. So welcome to my channel. Let's start with the basics. What's really important to know for you is in which growing zone you are, when your last frost date is. That's the date on average for your zip code when it's safe to put plants outside and you don't risk any frost anymore. And then it's also important to know when your first frost date is in fall, because between the last frost date and the first frost date, this will define how long and how much time you have to actually grow things. Those are the basic parameters you need to know to really set up yourself for success. And the next step in the garden planning process is for you to know how much space you actually have to grow plants. Because of course we want to all grow everything at all times, but the garden real estate is what limits us in that department. So it's really important to know that how much space you have, and I would recommend to go out in your garden and really get the measuring tape out so you have an exact measurement of your garden beds if you don't know that already, and that will help you to plant properly. In my case, we're talking the vegetable garden beds today. So those are the 3 large wooden raised beds at the fence line. They are all 4x8 and 24 inches tall, so they are really, really sizable. And then I have 3 Vego beds. The 2 larger ones where I have the arch over, those are 3.5 by 7.5 feet. So almost as large as my wooden beds, not quite as tall. They're 17 inches tall, but still amazing beds to grow a lot of vegetables. And then my last Vego bed, the skinny one, this is 1.5 feet by 7.5 feet. This has this year a special purpose where I might talk a little bit about later, but I'm not growing anything in it. I basically gave that to somebody special to grow with me throughout the season, and I'm very excited for it. So we're only looking at those 5 beds. So the next step is really, after you measured your garden size, is really to get this on paper, or what I do is I have a digital garden journal on my iPad to really draw it to scale so that you know how much space you have. With this drawing to scale, what I then recommend is to put a grid over per square foot. So for example, here I have like 8 rows, well, no, 8 rows and 4 rows, which then in the end are 32 squares for that 4x8 bed, which gives you a lot of options. And that is really what all you need to get started with, because from the moment you have those squares, it is really, really easy to define how much space and how much plants you can grow in a certain area. Once I'm ready to plant my garden, I have my templates and everything here drawn out. I always also consider what are my goals for the garden year. You might have seen content from me before. Like I always have like 5 goals, which I really focus on for the year. And last year it's been simplicity. This year simplicity is still on the top of my list because I travel for work a lot. So I want to make sure whatever I plan, I'm able to maintain it with a lot of time away for me. So I can't put anything in what needs to be babied along too much, right? I do have an irrigation system in place, so that always makes it a little bit easier in general. Nevertheless, that is something what drives my decision-making process on what kind of varieties I pick. Then the other one, which is also on my list of goals, is to grow only what we eat. And yes, it's sometimes hard when you see those cool varieties popping up in the seed catalogs where you're like, oh, that's purple, and that's like, oh, purple broccoli or whatever, right? And it looks so great, and it looks so fancy, and you want to grow it. But then the family looks like, why the heck would I eat purple broccoli, right? Not my case here, just an example. But just think of that. Now with me growing for a few years here in a row, we have a good plan of, or I know what my family eats here and what we really, really like. So for that reason, it's a little bit easier, but I always do a survey at the end of the year and ask everybody in the family, like, what should we grow more or less of in the upcoming year. And yeah, this year we decided to make a little bit of an adjustment in one of those beds. So I'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, those are just points for consideration. For those 3 large beds, which I have in my vegetable garden, I typically try to rotate the content through. So for example, in the middle bed I had last year, the tomatoes, they will move to the next one in the corner basically. So I always try to like crop rotate light in those beds. Like a good crop rotation always helps to keep diseases in check and is usually better for the soil health in general to have some variety over the years and not just growing everything in the same place over and over again. We go by number by the bed. So the bottom right one is the bed number 1, and then number 2 and number 3. That's basically how we built them. And then it's Vego 1 and Vego 2, basically going from the fireplace down. Vego 1, Vego 2, and the skinny one is Vego 3. Let's start with the bed number 1. So this is in the rotation this year, my allium bed. I have already started there my garlic and then my onion variety. So I basically have 50-50 in this bed, like 4 by 4 feet garlic and 4 by 4 feet onions. And I know those are not necessarily the most sexiest vegetables, but we have now like beginning of February and I'm still eating my onions from last year's garden. So it's just something what we use almost every day in the kitchen. It's just something what I like to grow because it's practical for me. That is also then done very, very early in the season. So I typically flip that around early August then to a full carrot bed for my Thanksgiving carrots. And that crop last year was a stunner crop. So I hope we have same success this year. We'll see. Moving on to bed number 2. This is where we are doing some changes this year. So last year I had a large spring crop of snap peas and snow peas in there, which I will still do just a little bit. So this will be turned over very quickly then in June, probably beginning to mid-June, depending on the status of the peas there, into in bed for the cucurbits. So we'll grow their cucumbers. And last year I had there a lot of winter squash. So some really, really nice pumpkins and some row 7 squashes, which I really, really liked. But again, I'm the only one who really likes to eat them. Nobody else does. So what I'm trying to do this year is to grow some watermelon varieties instead of the winter squash. So again, keep in mind what your family eats, what they're excited about. And then for the third bed, this is the tomato bed. So the issue with this bed, or the thing where I'm still going back and forth, and I gotta say I haven't fully decided yet, but gotta make a decision soon about it, is you might remember that all 3 of those wooden beds had my beautiful copper trellis system over it, so I could grow no matter in which bed, like my tomatoes, my vertical crops, no problem. But then in one winter, 2 winters ago, they came basically down in a storm. A neighbor blew stuff over the fence and crashed into the trellises. So they are no more. So only the middle bed at the moment has the good trellis. And for my tomatoes, which is the last bed, like bed number 3 this year, I gotta have some really, really good supports for them. But I'm probably try out the Titan, like those round Titan cages from Gardener Supply. I know Laura from Garden Answer really loves them, and they really look sturdy, and they have freaking high winds in the summer and they hold up there. So that was always like one of my consideration, because we get really high winds in the summer here every once in a while as well. So I need something what doesn't blow over. But nevertheless, this is going to be the tomato bed. But depending on the trellis situation, is those cages take up more space. So I might have to drop 1 or 2 plants, which I usually plant them a little bit closer because I grow them really, really tall. I might surrender 1 or 2 plants to just give the other ones more space and those cages more space in that bed. So we'll see. So I gotta make a decision soon on them. I should also order those cages before they sell out or so. Sometimes they're not always available, but that's so far the plan for those 3 beds. And I always love my tomato bed. This is yeah, that's what I'm growing vegetables for, to have like tomato sauce and everything. It's what I enjoy the most, period. And then we'll have also some peppers on the side. What I probably won't grow this year because we haven't used them as much as I wanted to are the ground cherries. I'm not going through the issue of, or through the effort of starting them from seeds. They grow like weeds in my garden from past years' seeds, which are sprinkled in the garden. So if I feel like I still want one, I just let one of those volunteers come through and park it and place it where I still like it. So we're down in this bed to two eggplants. The rest is peppers and tomatoes, which we all eat and grill and cook with. So this is really a good setup. And then when we move on to the Vego beds, so you know this Vego bed has this massive arch over it. And so for this one, I always do like mini crop rotation. So I always flip what is in those beds. So in the Vego 1 bed is this year, it's the tomato and spicy pepper side or hot pepper side. We're not a super hot household, but I do love me some cowboy candy with some jalapenos. And we like poblanos. And yeah, a few of you will laugh at me that I consider those ones hot peppers, but yes, I do. But those will be grown in this bed, and then I'll do my cherry tomatoes in this bed so they can grow over the arch, which is always a great way to grow cherry tomatoes because they are just wild, and the more you can let them go and let them do their thing, I would argue the happier they are and the less effort you have to. So they are great growing over the arch in that direction. And then in the middle, basically, I have a good number of paste tomatoes, which I really grow only for the purpose of making sauce out of them, which I love as well. That's my main usage for the tomatoes. And then when we look on the other side, this is where I grow what I like to call our beast plant. If you just follow me anywhere for a little while, you've heard about the Row 7 Centercut squash. This thing, 2 plants, produced me last year 150 pounds and 88 fruits or something. Yep, so we're still growing 2 of the varieties. And on the outskirts, we have some basil plants, 1 more cucumber plant probably. The cucumber always produces earlier than the Centercut squash for me, so they have a little bit more space until that plant takes over the show, and it's like a mini succession almost. And then on the side of the railing of the arch, I'll grow my favorite green beans at this stage, which are pole beans as well, who produce non-stop all season long. That is my plan so far. And then for that little bed, as I mentioned earlier, I have this year an exciting garden companion where I can't wait for her to join me. Is the 5-year-old granddaughter from my partner's sister, and yeah, they just live not far away and they just don't have space for gardening. And she came over last year to just pluck some carrots with me and was so excited and just got the garden back. Basically didn't stop talking about her experience of taking those carrots down. So I'm excited to grow with her. There's nothing more fun than growing with kids who are excited about growing and see all the wonders of gardening. So I'm super excited for that. I have also a little special something for you. If you are curious to see what my seed starting schedule is, you can check out the description. I have a little link to a sign up sheet there where I email you my 2-pager with my seed starting schedule. Keep in mind it's a zone 6, but if you're in a zone 6, it will be hopefully very applicable to you. And yep, there's a little thank you for you because I always get that question later as well. So you can get that to download, and I hope it is helpful. And yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, subscribe and watch another video. Thank you.